and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning. Yes, it is about time that we will become soon 4 in a row champions. And make sure that you click on the first link in the description of this video to get your brand new 4 in a row champions t-shirts. Champions 21, 22, 22, 23, 24. 24 and this season 24-25 season. Grab your t-shirt in the link in the description. That's enough of that nonsense. Anyway, this weekend Celtic travel to Hampden Park. The short journey from Celtic Park along to Hampden Park, and we're in the semi-final of the Scottish Cup, and it got me thinking, is this season that Brendan Rodgers does the treble again? The journey starts? The journey starts really this weekend. It's been a long old season, and you have to win the cup. You have to win the Premier Sports Cup. You have to win the league. The league is almost in the bag. A draw this weekend will see us win the league. I don't think it'll be a draw, but not this weekend, next weekend. But when it comes to the cup, is it a grudge match against St Johnstone at Hampden? Is it a grudge match against St Johnstone at Hampden, or is it just going to be another normal Celtic day where they walk up to Hampden? It's a hard game, but they get there in the end. And I think that there's going to be a few players that will need to step up to the mark. It's going to be, I'm just reading the champions to lift the 55th title. Yes, going for trebles, to being champions. Yeah, that's a good one, Lanky, actually. For the 55th title. To grab 4 in a row is always something special, because it's not often that you get 4 championships in a row. But this weekend it is all about the Scottish Cup and the trip to Hampden. What players do you think will be starting this weekend, and what players have to step up to the mark? And what is the value of Rio Hatate to Celtic? What is the real value? He's a player that has Celtic fans all over the world thinking he's a fantastic player, and then for 30 minutes of the game thinking he's an absolute waste of a jersey for the first 30 minutes of a game. What is the true valuation of Rio Hatate to Celtic? He's a player that when he turns it on, like he did last weekend, is absolutely unstoppable. If Arne Engels was brought into the club at 11 million, now Arne Engels is a good few years younger than Rio Hatate, but what is the true valuation of Rio Hatate? And is Rio Hatate a player that we can really afford to lose this summer? And will he start this weekend? My starting 11 for the weekend will be as follows. I think that, we all know the keeper situation, and Sinisalo will start in goals. And I'm going to say that Greg Taylor will also start at Hampden. Yes, I'm going to put my neck out on the line and say that Greg Taylor will start at Hampden this weekend. In the middle of the pitch with him, it's going to be a close one. But I think Austin Trusty will step back into it after Liam Scales being in. Austin Trusty didn't play at the weekend because his daughter was born, and just after his wedding. And congratulations to him. But I think Austin Trusty, but the last time, will Austin Trusty start over Liam Scales? I think it will. I'm going to stick with my initial thought, and I'm going to put Austin Trusty, Cameron Carter-Vickers and Alistair Johnstone at the back. So there's no real changes. The one change that is obviously from last weekend is the fact that I think that Trusty will come back into the starting lineup against St Johnstone this weekend. The midfield, it's a normal midfield for Celtic. It's Callum McGregor in the midfield. It is Rio Hatate and Arne Engels. Some may say that Paulo Bernardo should be getting his shot, but do you really leave out Arne Engels and you don't drop Rio Hatate? But Brendan Rodgers has shown that over the last couple of weeks, that you just do not drop Rio Hatate. You do not even take him off. And Lanky's going for Sinisalo, AJ, Scales, Taylor, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Callum McGregor, Arne Engels, Forrest, Maida and Jota. That's the ones that I was going to say next. Do you drop Nico Kuhn? And is this going to be the James Forrest show. We all know that James Forrest likes to turn up at Hampden and do something special. Will he turn up this weekend? And will it be the James Forrest show? And Nico Kuhn, does he deserve to be dropped to the bench in place of James Forrest? Mikey Boy says, Hatate has missed far too many chances for me, and yes, he can play well against average sides in Scotland, but he doesn't do it consistently. We can get a better player, in my opinion. Well, it's funny because there's an article that Stan Petrov wrote, one of the Daily Rags today, and Stilian Petrov says Rio Hatate reminds him of himself, and having spent a good few years at Celtic, Stan Petrov knew it was time to move on. When you think about what Stan Petrov did in that midfield, there is similarities between Stan Petrov and Rio Hatate. When Rio Hatate wants to be, he can dominate that midfield. In any Celtic game in Scotland, he can be the driving force. And I think that that is the frustrating thing when it comes to Celtic fans and Rio Hatate. I think they see the frustration that he doesn't do it. It's perceived that he doesn't do it often enough. When you see the goal that he scored last week, absolute screamer. A guy with his potential should be doing that in Scotland. I mean, look at Matt O'Reilly. You just need to look back to Matt O'Reilly last season. Matt O'Reilly is a player that grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck in Scotland and shown the level of player that he can potentially be. And he did it consistently. And he did do it consistently. And I think that's where, when you look back to last season and you see what Matt O'Reilly did on an ongoing basis, you were kind of hoping that this would be the season. This was Rio's season. This was Rio's season to come to the front of the queue and say, right, it's my time to shine. And it just hasn't worked out like that this season for him, has it? If people can see the game this weekend, Engels was further up the pitch. He was attack mid. Yep, he was attack midfield, as him and Rio Hatate are meant to be. That's where they're meant to be playing. Callum McGregor's the one that's meant to be sitting back. So I think that the both of them, will they perform on the bigger stage? I think Kuhn and Engels, Ida and Trusty are still getting their heads around playing Saturday, Wednesday, and none of them played more once a week at a previous club. Could be tiredness setting in, says the Doric Destroyer. Is it tiredness setting in because they're back to playing one game a week? I don't buy that now. I think that they've had the best part of a month where they're playing just one game a week. That's, in a professional capacity, a player needs around about a week to get his body back into just a relaxed mode rather than the hypertension mode when they're playing in 3 games a week. And that can cause issues, that can cause injuries, and that can put stress on the body. Then reverting back to this late stage of the season, reverting back to one game a week should only benefit the players. And so I don't think that it should be overtiredness. I think they should be more focused than ever going into this end of the season, because their attention's only on the one game a week. So I don't know. Langus says, John, why drop Kuhn? In my opinion, his head's been for weeks. We want to perform and go missing. Michael Boy says, agree, Baza, wanted Hatate to do well. It just hasn't happened. I agree, Mikey Boy. I think I can't understand why it's not happened for him this season. Do you know why he's never... When Matt O'Reilly left, he should have been going, right, I don't care who Celtic bring in. I'm going to be the number one next season. I'm going to be the player that everyone's talking about. Do you know, I'm going to be the player that's undroppable. I'm going to be the player that sets the standard. Do you know, and turning up like he did last weekend, he's done it in spells during the season, but too many times throughout the season during the first half. Back's on record. During the first half, I think that Rio Hatate he's maybe thought that he was going into the game and it was going to be too easy. Mark says he's just spent £1,500 to bring Yang's bird back. Oh, Jesus. Anyway, the Doric Destroyer says, I think that Engels... What do you think of that? Kuhn, Engels, Adam, Ida and Trusty are still getting their heads around playing Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. But I don't buy it, because I think that at this stage of the season, it should be more relaxed for them and it should be more focused. But it's all about opinions in this channel. Celtic 6 on Sunday, says Paul Baird. James Forrest to start on Sunday and score a double. I've got James Forrest starting ahead of Nico Kuhn. I've also got Jota on the other wing. I had to think about that there. I've got Jota on the other wing, and I've got Dyson Maeda going through the middle, because I think that Brendan Rodgers will go for pure and utter power and speed. It's Hampden, it's that big pitch. We're going to have a good amount of fans there. St Johnstone will take whatever they're taking. I have no idea what they're taking. I don't even look, to be honest. And I think that, will it be a big score? I've got a funny feeling. You've got to give credit to St Johnstone the last game. They played with a 4 at the back. They played with a 3 at the back at some times. They played 2 up front. They played a formation that Celtic, they played a 3-5-2, didn't they, really? And I think that Celtic need to be wary of that. Celtic need to be really wary of St Johnstone on that big pitch at Hampden. Big This says, good morning, Baz and troops, the one Celtic fans at View Community. So, what do you price Hatate at? Let's get back to the original question. What do you price Hatate at? If Arne Engels was worth 11 million to Celtic for them to buy him in, what is the real valuation of Rio Hatate? Celtic turned down a £10 million offer from Rio Hatate in the summer of last year. It was late on in the summer, but they turned the bid down of 10 million. If Rio Hatate turns up, is he a £15 million player? Is he a £20 million player? Is he a £25 to £30 million player? I think that is the big question when it comes into this summer. But let's hope that he can do it this weekend against St Johnstone. So I'm going to go over my team again. It was Sinisalo at the back. It was Cameron Carter-Vickers with Austin Trusty. Even though there's a bit of me thinking he's going to go with Liam Scales because it's Hampden. And I don't think that Trusty's done too well at Hampden, to be honest. I've just got a funny feeling. But that's the only position that I think is up, that is questionable going into this game, whether it be Trusty or whether it be Trusty or Liam Scales. Out in the wing is going to be Greg Taylor. I'm sorry, Paul, but it's going to be Greg Taylor. And on the other side, it will be Alistair Johnson. The midfield speaks for itself. Rio Hatate, Callum McGregor, Arne Engels, with James Forrest on the wing. Dyson Maeda, I keep wanting to say Kyogo because I keep thinking that Kyogo's there, but he's not. With Dyson Maeda through the middle, and Jota on the other wing. Sorry, I'm just reading comments. We'd be lucky to get 10 million for him unless we sell him to Saudi. I don't think so. And I've got a funny feeling. There's a bit of me now thinking that even though I think Hatate's got 3 years left on his contract, I've got a funny feeling that Celtic won't sell him this summer. I've got a funny feeling that, having thought about players and logistics and everything else and the way that the team's playing, if Brendan Rodgers can bring out a performance like that in Rio Hatate, they'll want Rio Hatate to try and stay. But then there's been people saying all season that they want to follow Kyogo out the door. But we'll wait and see. I wouldn't be surprised if Rio Hatate was not sold this summer. The big one for me is getting Dyson Maeda on an extended contract. Lanky says 10 to 12 million for Rio Hatate. John says, new players are finding it difficult to play for Celtic and what it brings. I think you're right there, John. I think there's a lot of players that are struggling with the fact that every game's a must-win game. You can go to other clubs and you don't have that pressure of having to win every single game and have a bit of an easier life, as they say. At Celtic, the pressure to win every single game, when you're not used to that, when you've maybe came through, if you've never sort of won anything in your career and you've had a career where you've played good football and you've got, you've been paid well. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, Jeffrey Schlupp's on 60 grand a week. That's mind-blowing for me. The fact that Jeffrey Schlupp is on 60 grand a week. I mean, if Jeffrey Schlupp's bang average, let's face it. He's bang average. He's nothing spectacular, but he's on 60 grand a week. That's unbelievable, and it's modern day, isn't it? And one thing that I want to talk about, I made a prediction a few weeks ago, and you remember I said the last time a Scottish player came to Celtic that was phenomenal for us, a Scottish player in my eyes, was Paul Lambert. Having won the Champions League, Celtic knew that Paul Lambert's wife wanted to come back to Scotland, and Celtic managed to get Paul Lambert back at Celtic right after winning the Champions League. And a few weeks ago I said that I reckon that Kieran Tierney could follow suit. Kieran Tierney's coming back to Celtic, and last night his Arsenal team got into the semi-final of the Champions League. They did get into the semi of the Champions League, and I still say that Kieran Tierney, and I've just got the funniest of feeling, I think it will be Barcelona, Arsenal in the final. I've got a funny feeling that Arsenal are going to win the Champions League. And if they do, and Kieran Tierney, I should be a betting man. I've just got a funny feeling, and I have said it for a couple of weeks, that I think Kieran Tierney will return to Celtic as a Champions League winner. And getting a Champions League winner again back at Celtic is just, it's written in the stars. It is. I just think it's written in the stars. You can see PSG lifting the cup. I'm not too sure. I've just got, there's something in the water, Lanky, something in the water. Anyway, Ian Roy says, good morning. I wouldn't be surprised if Greg Taylor signed a new contract soon. Crazy valuations for Hatate, when most week he's pish, says Richard. What do you value Rio Hatate at? Because I think that the Celtic valuation of Rio Hatate will be 15 to 20 million. And I believe that will be did you see Mbappe last night? Going down in the pitch. Jesus, trying to get that penalty. I watched a bit of both games last night. But anyway, Greg Taylor signed a new contract. Crazy, that was it. Crazy valuations for Rio Hatate. I mean, I think that Celtic will rate him at the 15 to 20 million. Richard says 7 to 8 million he rates him. 7 to 8 million for Rio Hatate. I think that Celtic's valuation and fan valuation will always be miles apart. I definitely think that Celtic valuations and fan valuations will always be miles apart. But anyway, I've got a funny feeling that Celtic will not encourage offers for Rio Hatate this summer. Because let's face it, who do we have in the midfield that can turn a game like Rio Hatate? Paulo Bernardo's bound to be thinking, Jesus, I should have just stayed at Benfica. I should have stayed at Benfica. We would have probably had more chance of getting a game. Jed Johnston's in the house. Tommy's 55's in the house. A lot of people saying that they can see PSG lifting the big cup. Interesting. A lot of folk now talking about the Petrov, talking about Engels this morning. It is one of those weeks where it is a very, very quiet news week because it is down to one game a week and it is semi-final week. I'm sure that will ramp up tomorrow when Brendan Rodgers speaks to the press, and it'll be interesting to see who gets brought up beside him. Will it be? It's meant to be Calmack, isn't it? We're going to Hampden. Lawwell will sell him for 30 million. It wouldn't surprise me if he was sold for something crazy like that. He does have 3 years left in his contract. Exactly. I've got to think what quality is out there for a half-decent price if we had to replace Hatate. That's one of the reasons that I'm starting to think that Celtic will not encourage offers for Rio Hatate, because Arne Engels isn't as good as Rio Hatate. Paulo Bernardo isn't getting the opportunity, which I think is... Paulo Bernardo is a fantastic player. And when it comes to it, you're thinking, Rio's the man that can really turn games. Did you see what Iwata has been named for Player of the Year at Birmingham. Yeah. But where would Iwata have fitted into the team this season, Lanky? He was sold because he's not going to get a game in front of. He's not going to get a game in front of Callum McGregor. And he's going to be one of these players that Celtic are going to rue selling for cheaper than what we did. I mean, we sell him for buttons. We sell Tomoki Iwata for absolute buttons. But he's another player that wanted away because he wasn't getting game time. He was far too good. I mean, he was far too good a player to sit on the bench at Celtic. And that's why I think it's going to be a difficult summer for Celtic, both bringing in players and trying to convince players to stay at Celtic, purely for the fact that... What are you doing? Getting comfy? Need it. Definitely played the way he did last week, most week, but 3 times a season is not good enough. Taylor would be better in that position. A lot of people have been talking about that, Greg Taylor playing in that position, but that means that you need another left back. It means that we still need to go into the market for a left back, no matter what happens, because you can't have Greg Taylor playing in that midfield role. Maybe Brendan Rodgers is going to say that to him. Maybe Brendan Rodgers is having that conversation with Greg Taylor. Would you like to turn into a midfield player at this stage in your career? And I'll change it up for you. You're not going to be left back. You're not going to be competing with Kieran Tierney, but you're going to be competing with other players in midfield. There's the possibility. Once Paolo gets his chance, he will stay in the team. Who drops out the team then, John? Is it Arne Engels? Or is it Rio Hatate? Or is Rio Hatate off this summer and Paolo Bernardo's the one that's going to step up to the mark next season? If you look at previous games, Callum has played alongside Engels to show him the ropes. Why didn't it happen with Iwata? Engels played further forward though. I don't think that Celtic see... Do they see Arne Engels as a holding midfield player? Do they see him as a long-term replacement for Callum McGregor in that holding midfield role? And that allows Callum not to play as much, and then it allows Rio Hatate to stay, and it allows Paolo Bernardo to play up front? Maybe. When is Celtic next game? Sunday, Connor? Sunday. Just saying. Sunday at Hampden. Yes, it is at Hampden, but once that is done and dusted and we know that we're through to the final, make sure that you get your 4 in a row t-shirts. Click the first link in the description of the video to get your 4 in a row champions t-shirts. Engels has only been pushed forward recently. Yeah, but he was always more an attacking midfield player. All this chat about Taylor in midfield is nonsense, says Paul Baird. No, it doesn't. I have said it for 2 years. Taylor was a midfielder. There we go. Kevin says Greg Taylor has always been a midfielder, even though he played... Anyway, Dave Hislop is in the house. Right, let me just double check this. Do you know what's really weird just now? At this time of the season, we're usually starting to get quite a lot of transfer noise, transfer speculation, but there's very, very little this season. There's going into the last month of the season, we usually start to get some snippets about potential signings, and this season there is absolutely nothing. Now, is that because Brendan Rodgers has sealed the leak at Celtic Park? Has Brendan Rodgers finally... Baz, are you on holiday with a new backdrop? Nope. No, the computer can do this. I found out that the computer can go like this. See, and do this. It's cracking, this thing, right? What's this thing? Oh, like that thing is the background. You can also do this as well. Oh no, don't do that. Don't do that. Pressing buttons on a live. Don't do it. Don't do it. Get the background back up. That was quite cool. Yeah, it's quite cool. Anyway, got tickets for the Celtic game in Cork. Looking for it. Seeing all their new signings in July. Yeah, exactly. Do you think that we'll have new signings in July? That's very optimistic. Very optimistic. Leslie, I totally agree with you. This game will not be a pushover. I said that at the beginning of the video. If you look at the way that St Johnstone played against us, they played a 3-5-2. Their two strikers will be right up for this game. It's a bigger pitch at Hampden. They've got a bit more space to run about, and Celtic will need to be at their best. Celtic will need to be at their best. The Celtic goals on Sunday. The Celtic goals on Sunday will be. I don't think there will be any from a corner. I don't see it. I may be wrong, but it's very. If you can get the background for a box bar. No. We'll have a one Celtic fans view meet up in Cork. Yeah, we could do that. I know quite a few guys from Spain that are already booked to go over to Cork. But anyway, the game Sunday, Celtic game Sunday is not going to be an easy game. I think St Johnstone will know that they have potentially the better of Celtic. They'll have doubts in the Celtic players' minds that, this is a good team. St Johnstone have got nothing to lose. Nothing to lose going into this game. They can go into the game the same way they did up in Perth a couple of weeks ago. They can go into the game thinking, just have a go. You have a go, we play tight at the back, and you never know what can happen. If we don't have a go, we're going to get beat 3 or 4-0. We can have a go and get beat 3 or 4-0. At least we got to the semi. It's been a fantastic season. We're getting relegated, but hey ho, there's a chance that we could potentially get to the final. And if we get to the final, then it's just game up, isn't it? If we turn up on Sunday, there's only one winner. Yeah, it's if there's a big Peter, there's if. We need a left back, a midfielder, and a striker at least this summer. This is true. This is very true. If Greg Taylor goes, we need. It's looking like he will. We'll need a left back. But as I suggested before, once if you live travel with the Barrowlands, I'd buy a ticket. Oh jeez, I don't think the rest of the Celtic fan base would probably buy tickets for it though. I know me chatting up on it. Anyway, St Johnstone will set up the same as previous game. They'll go with 2 up front. Yep, I think there's every chance they'll play 3-5-2. They maybe go to a 4-4-2, but and then I think they'll flood the midfield. I think that they know their manager's got the better of Brendan Rodgers a couple of weeks ago, knowing that if you flood that midfield, if you stop Callum McGregor playing, everybody knows that if you stop Callum McGregor playing, you stop Celtic playing. The man marked Callum McGregor at the game, and when you do that, it's anyway, bigger and better playing surface will pump them. Do you put it down? Should we put it down to the? I don't buy that. People saying it was the surface. It was the surface. St Johnstone's got to play on the same surface. St Johnstone's got to play on the same bumpy surface that was up in Perth. And maybe you're right. Maybe you're right with the Celtic. The ball will slide a bit easier for the Celtic players. And I don't buy it. I don't buy it in a modern day player. But I do agree that the bigger pitch will suit Celtic more. Paul Baird says, I've no doubt that Celtic will give St Johnstone a hiding on Sunday. Is this the time? Is this James Forrest hat-trick would be sweet? I think if James Forrest even scores 1 goal, that'll be enough for me. If he scores the 1 goal, that'll be more than enough for me. Willie's going for 4-0 on Sunday. We'll do a live tonight, 8 p.m. Celtic part-time tonight, but we'll go with our score predictions. So no score predictions for me in this one. We'll do a score prediction video tonight, 8 p.m. Celtic Park time. So make sure you join us with that. And on that note, have an absolutely fantastic day, Celtic fans, wherever you are, all around the world.